Chapter 342 Golden Butterfly Dragon Transformation. They went down for about 20 seconds. The enormous elevator began to shake once more before it gradually came to a stop. Get ready for battle. There are two people. Donga will take the one on the left, and Q are the one on the right. Who are Yuao's voice barely dropped before the elevator's main door gradually opened. Hey, what's Manager Lee doing at a time like this? Is he sending alcohol to us? Someone's voice could be heard. He sounded a little amused. Who are Yuao's eyes flashed with golden light, and two muffled grunts could be heard at the same time. Spiritual shock. He was in his spiritual form, and he couldn't unleash his spiritual shock's real power. But what he could do right now was enough at a time like this. Wang Donga and Wang Qiu lunged forward like lightning bolts. Wang Qiu grasped her golden dragon spear as she always did, while Wang Donga reached out with her right hand. The two people's automatic protective soul barriers bounced up as they were caught off guard, but these barriers were immediately broken through by the two girls. The golden dragon spear, and the broken devil of light. Two middle-aged men crashed to the ground unwillingly from the two girls' attacks. Just like that. They were both class 6 soul engineers. Just like Shu Tianran had said to Ju Zi, soul engineers weren't afraid of soul masters of the same level if they had time to prepare, and some soul engineers even had the advantage at lower classes and ranks. However, soul masters could react a lot faster than soul engineers in terms of ambushes and sudden attacks. It was unfortunate for them that both Wang Qiu and Wang Donga had the strength to break through protective soul barriers, and these two class 6 soul engineers didn't have a single chance at all as they crumpled to the ground. The two girls turned and looked at Qiu Yuao after they moved the corpses aside. There was another tunnel in front of them, and this tunnel was a lot more spacious than the one before. Soul lamps dotted its walls. There was another pair of twin doors roughly 10 meters inside. Qiu Yuao said, "These two each have a set of keys on them. Take them out." Wang Donga and Wang Qiu took out one set each. Qiu Yuao lowered his voice and instructed the two girls, "Follow the left side of the tunnel. Remember, your steps cannot be more than 2 feet horizontally." They followed his instructions, followed the left side of the tunnel, and arrived at the twin door. This door was huge, 4 meters tall, and at least 3 meters wide. There weren't any decorations on top, only a danger sign. There were 3 holes in its lock, and a passcode keypad above it. You have to insert the key first this time. Donga's key will go into the bottom left position while Qiu's key will go into the bottom right position. Qiu, there's a black key in Li Chong's set, and that goes into the top hole. All 3 keys have to be pieced together before they're inserted. The 3 girls were increasingly astonished and bewildered the deeper they went in, and only now did they understand why Qiu Yuao had insisted on separating his spiritual avatar to follow them here. Every single detail was very important in this place, and not a single mistake could be made. They also needed his spiritual detection to guide them so that they could avoid the various dangers and traps. This place was as perilous as it could be. The girls were also full of admiration for Qiu Yuao's powerful memory. They inserted the 3 keys at the same time, and the passcode was next. This time, there were 32 digits. Wang Qiu had already forgotten the numbers in front by the time she entered everything Qiu Yuao told her. The twin doors creaked and opened up, and a faint metal smell emanated from within. Wang Donga, Wang Qiu, and Xiaoxiao weren't soul engineers, so their reactions were still quite mild. However, Qiu Yuao's spiritual avatar was getting excited as he stared at everything inside. This was an enormous warehouse. It didn't seem to have an end as it stretched out into the distance. It was possibly 10,000 square meters in surface area. Trunks and cases of different categories were placed in various locations, and the dense, thick smell of metal came from those cases. The cases' outer layers were not enough to block Qiu Yuao's spiritual power. Therefore, his senses were telling him that this was a tremendous treasure trove. More than 10,000 tons of all kinds of rare metals were stored here. Qiu Yuao did a simple scan and realized that there were 32 different types of rare metals in this place. Even though they were not the rarest or the most exotic ones, there was just so much here. Qiu Yuao could only evaluate the rare metals in this warehouse as enough to rival an entire nation. Are they all rare metals? Do we start bagging them now? Wang Donga asked softly. Qiu Yuao shook his head and said, "No, there are many traps and mechanisms in this place. Furthermore, these are not the most exotic and precious ones. There are 3 different warehouses in this place, and this is only the first one. Fortunately, the guardians of this place have headed towards the royal palace. Otherwise, we might have had some real trouble, because they are at least soul sages. Li Chong can only enter the warehouse up until the 2nd level. Come, let's go to the 2nd level. There are much more valuable and important rare metals there. Be careful, and pay attention to the bricks on the ground. You can only step on those with dark colors, and if there aren't any for you to step on, you have to jump over. Also, some of these cases have red lines on them. You can't walk within a meter of those cases. If you do, we will trigger the alarm, and we will be attacked by soul tools." Why wasn't such an important underground warehouse heavily guarded by soldiers? Other than the powerful guardians who had just departed, the most important reason was that the soul tool defense mechanisms in this place were armed to the teeth. Even the people who were working in the warehouse only knew how the mechanisms and traps for their own region worked. Li Chong was the manager, so he knew a little more than the others. However, he would need the other 2 keys at the same time if he wanted to enter the twin doors. Qiu Yuao guided them forward, and the company anxiously pushed on. They had spiritual detection to guide them, and they didn't make any mistakes at all. The company continued carefully, and went about 100 meters in from the entrance before they took a left turn, and they took a few more before they found a second gate behind a large batch of cases. There were 5 different gaps in this gate's keyhole, while Li Chong only had 1 key. The other 4 keys had been taken away by the powerful individuals who had left before this. What do we do, Yuao? Everyone was dumbfounded as they stared at the gate's complicated keyhole, and they wondered about how many digits this passcode would have. Wang Donga snapped her head around to Qiu Yuao on her shoulder and said, "We can't take this risk, Yuao. Why don't we just take some from this warehouse and go back? We have more than 30 storage-type soul tools, and we still have that large starlight sapphire breastplate. We can take quite a bit away already." Qiu Yuao smiled and said, "It's fine. I already predicted a situation like this, and everything that we've done before this was to minimize our troubles and avoid as much as we can. We can actually open this door." Wang Qiu nodded and said, "If I use all my strength, I should have a chance of bashing it down. We would have a higher chance with his help. But can you precisely predict the soul tools that will attack us?" She was naturally referring to the sword maniac, Ji Juogan. Fortunately, Ji Juogan wasn't next to her, because he probably would have taken out his judgment sword already with his personality. Qiu Yuao was in his spiritual form, but he felt as if he were going to sweat as he said helplessly, "Can you not be so violent? We don't need you to be violent yet." His spiritual avatar became a little illusory as he spoke, and a bluish-green light separated from his body in the next moment and hovered in front of the 3 girls. This was a carving knife that was green all over, with a light orbiting it. It was filled with life energy. Wang Qiu's eyes suddenly focused as she stared at this carving knife and blurted out, "Is that life gold?" Qiu Yuao was also momentarily stunned. This was the first time he had heard someone else mention life gold other than the Calamity Necromancer Electrolux, who was already gone. Wang Qiu's eyes immediately grew sharp. "Where did you get this life gold?" Qiu Yuao said, "I got lucky at an auction. This carving knife was originally called the soul-devouring carving knife. I removed its curse after I obtained it, and returned it to its original form. It became like this. Since you know about life gold, then you should be able to sense what it does." Wang Qiu shot him a complicated glance and nodded, grabbing the life guardian blade from in front of him. My golden dragon spear can absorb living beings' life energy, and this carving knife that's formed from life gold should be able to absorb physical matter's life energy. I never expected to see such a large piece of life gold. This is the kind of rare metal that's born from heaven and earth, and cannot be replicated." Wang Qiu began stabbing as she spoke, and the knife pierced into the gate before her. Green light flickered across the life guardian blade, and the knife stuck more than half an inch into the tough gate. A strange scene occurred. A layer of pale green light shone from the gate, and the thick gate that was filled with ancient strength was immediately tainted by a faint grey color, while the life guardian blade's green light became stronger and stronger. Wang Qiu gripped the handle, continuously infusing her soul power into and guiding the green light that was coming from the life guardian blade, while she held her golden dragon spear with her other hand. The extracted green light flowed into her golden dragon spear, and her spear instantly shone with golden light that easily lit up more than 10 meters around them. Qiu Yuao was in his spiritual form, so his senses were more sensitive than usual. He was a little surprised as he looked on and said, "Are you infusing the life energy that the life guardian blade is sucking away from the gate into your golden dragon spear?" "You can do that." Wang Qiu glanced at him and said, how can you not know the value of what you possess? Such a large piece of life gold can be considered a divine weapon. Life gold's most fascinating characteristic is not how it possesses metallic qualities. Instead, its most impressive attribute is how it can evolve other metals. Therefore, life gold has another name. It's also known as the mother of all metals. It can suck away any metal's life energy, but life gold itself cannot absorb all this life energy in its solid state. If this material life energy isn't guided, it will dissipate into the air. My golden dragon spear possesses similar characteristics, and it can absorb living beings' life energy, but it cannot keep that energy within itself. The spear can only direct all that life energy into humans. From the opposite perspective, I can use my golden dragon spear to absorb life energy and feed it into your life gold. Their existences can be said to be symbiotic and complementary. Hu Yuao only realized that he didn't know the value of what he possessed after listening to Wang Qiu's explanation. Not even his teacher, Electrolux, knew about what Wang Qiu had just said. The academy didn't have any record of such esoteric information, yet Wang Qiu knew this. Hu Yuao couldn't help but feel a lot more curious about her identity and where she came from. As they were talking, metal powder and tiny fragments began to drift away from the gate in front of them. Wang Qiu continued to channel her golden dragon spear and a life guardian blade, and the spear continued to absorb while the knife's adjudication ability seemed to be activated at its highest possible level. Hu Yuao said no more. Instead, he raised his spiritual detection to the highest possible level as he perceived everything around him. He would inform his companions as soon as he discovered something amiss. Adjudication destroyed a metal's empirical characteristics. This large gate was at least a meter thick, and made from 7 or 8 different alloys. If a soul master wanted to use brute force against this gate, even an 8-ring soul Douluo might not be able to break through. In addition, brute force would cause the place to shake and tremble, and that would trigger all the soul tools set up around them. Adjudication could directly absorb a metal's life energy and cause it to crumble. The designers who built this warehouse could never have anticipated such a thing, and even if all the Class 9 soul engineers in the Soul Moon Empire were concentrated in this place, they probably wouldn't have considered this possibility either. How much more, Qiu? Wang Donga couldn't help but ask. She was afraid that Hu Yuao's spiritual avatar had been separated from his main body for a little too long, and problems could arise. Furthermore, Hu Yuao was participating in the Soul Engineer tournament on the other side. He had brought his life guardian blade to this place, so what carving knife was he using over there? Wang Qiu answered, this gate is very thick, and its metals are also exceptionally tough. You can tell from how strong the life energy that I have absorbed is. I need at least 10 more minutes before I can break it down entirely. Hu Yuao naturally guessed Wang Donga's worries and attempted to comfort her. Don't worry, there's more than enough time. However, you have to be prepared. I suspect that there will be people guarding the second level, and they cannot possibly be weak. There must be a Class 7 Soul Engineer at the very least. Donga, Qiu, Xiao. The three of you have to coordinate at full strength so that you can defeat and kill your opponent as quickly as possible. Afterwards, we can attempt to break into the third level, as I believe that's where the most invaluable and precious metals are kept. Most of the strongest guardians have left, and the third warehouse is also the deepest region, which means it's far less likely that somebody will be standing guard there. Wang Donga and Wang Qiu understood that his reminders didn't seem to include Xiao. The two girls exchanged a look and nodded slightly. These was crunch time for everyone, and the two girls had to temporarily set aside their differences if they wanted things to work. The Radiant City's western suburbs. The Radiant City Elite Soul Engineering Tournament was progressing anxiously and tensely. After working for more than an hour, every soul engineer pretty much had a prototype of their soul tool. With the exception of one person, the Starsky Douluo, Yulin, had spent more than 50% of his time watching the youth in the wheelchair. Everyone else's soul tools were starting to take shape. At least, they had completed between 1 to 2 formation arrays, while this youth was still working on those delicate components. That cannot possibly be a human-shaped soul tool. It's impossible that he possesses such strength, and even if he does, a Class 9 soul engineer will take from half a month to 1 month to complete more than 100 formation arrays. Furthermore, human-shaped soul tools take very long to test and troubleshoot. One such soul tool cannot be completed without spending several months on it. What's this youngster doing? Yilin wouldn't be so focused on Hu Yuao if the only thing about him was that he couldn't understand what this youngster was doing. Yilin scrutinized him so much mainly because of the speed at which Hu Yuao was crafting those components, and how his hands were moving like clouds and flowing water. At this moment, there were many different components strewn around and beneath the crafting desk. It felt as if he wasn't going to stop making components. 2 hours were about to pass, and Hu Yuao didn't seem like he was about to take a break. I'll wait and see what he can do, Yilin thought to himself. Hu Yuao had his own hidden troubles. Because of his separated spiritual avatar, he seemed like he was moving very quickly, but there was nothing more he could do beyond these components that weren't considered too exquisite. Furthermore, he didn't have his life guardian blade, and that meant he couldn't complete his soul tool's important parts at all, let alone his formation arrays. Hu Yuao had to switch his spiritual power over to the other side again and again throughout the crafting process. He focused more on his crafting process when Wang Qiu was using his life guardian blade to open the large gate. The mysterious and masked vice founder had arrived inside the resting area beneath the competition stage. Just as Nangong had said, the vice founder brought along several other powerful individuals. Everyone could see the waves of radiant light and deafening booms that were coming from the sky in the city. However, the 3 underground organizations went on with their business as if nothing was happening, and they informed the audience that they were just fireworks. The Holy Ghost Church's vice founder had no help over there, and one could tell from this that the Holy Ghost Church was very confident. It seems like the operation on the other side is bound to fail. I wonder what strength the Holy Ghost Church is relying upon to resist this multi-pronged assault and pressure from Shrek Academy, the Douluo Empire, and the Body Sect. Are they just banking on the Dragon Emperor Douluo, Long Xiao, and several evil-titled Douluo? They must be far outnumbered. Even if Elder Sun and Du Busi cannot defeat Long Xiao, they are both rank 98 transcendent Douluo, and they should have no problem keeping Long Xiao occupied. Furthermore, they're inside Radiant City. Even if those Class 9 soul engineers have the strength to threaten those titled Douluo, will they dare to use those powerful soul tools? They will be in big trouble if they accidentally damage the royal palace or anything else within the city. Hu Yuao's thoughts continued spinning in his head. His spiritual power was extremely powerful, but he still felt a throbbing headache. He hurriedly withdrew his wandering thoughts and concentrated on crafting his soul tool, and didn't dare to be distracted anymore. It seems like there's nothing I can do about the operation over at the royal palace. I can only make sure that I complete my own 2 operations as best I can. The Sun Moon Empire looks like they are prepared. I just hope Elder Sun and the others will be fine. Hu Yuao wasn't that worried about Elder Sun and the other people from Shrek Academy. Why did Zhang agree to the 2 princesses' request? It was part of his plan from the beginning. Zhang had gone to see Bei Bei and Hu Yuao before she met the 2 princesses, and she actually met Bei Bei and Hu Yuao with Elder Sun beside her. Shrek Academy came up with their plan after careful discussion. If they were prepared, and if Elder Sun was leading the group, it was almost impossible for the Sun Moon Empire to keep them here if they wanted to. Not even an ultimate Douluo could accomplish that. They were inside Radiant City after all, and the Sun Moon Empire had to guard against these top-tier individuals from fighting for their lives and causing collateral damage. If a group of transcendent Douluo entitled Douluo went wild, Radiant City would be in tatters, if it wasn't just flattened entirely in the process. That wasn't something that Xu Tianran wanted to see. Hu Yuao settled down, and didn't dare to slow his crafting speed at all. Every single component and how they had to be made was firmly in his mind, and all he had to do was craft them as quickly as possible. Even though he didn't have his life guardian blade, Hu Yuao was using another high-quality carving knife. Metal dust and particles flew all over the place on his crafting desk. All right. Watch out. The large metal gate in front of them finally crumbled. Hu Yuao's spiritual power quickly showed the way while the gate was still falling down. A frightening white beam immediately fired out from inside, shooting straight for Wang Qiu, who still had the life guardian blade in her hands. Wang Qiu grunted coldly as her enchanting eyes focused on the light. She didn't dodge at all, instead planting her golden dragon spear vertically in front of her and blocking the ghastly white light beam. Her golden dragon spear had just absorbed large amounts of metallic life energy, and it was currently so bright and radiant that it seemed like it had transformed into a sun. The spear shone into every corner within everyone's field of view, and everything was tainted with brilliant golden hues. She didn't dodge, because Hu Yuao had reminded her that she had to defend against all the soul tool traps that the people inside would use against her. Wang Donga crouched on the other side, her wings stretched out behind her back as her elegant frame glided just above the ground. Her wings were like enormous guillotine blades as she slashed towards the person in front of them. They were were up against a middle-aged man who looked like he was in his 50s, and had many soul tools equipped at this moment. He hadn't paid much attention to what was happening to the large gate in the beginning. However, the gate's inner colors started to change as time went by, and the decaying metal finally alerted him. He was the only person left on the second level, but he was a soul sage. He had touched the gate carefully, and immediately discovered metal dust and fragments crumbling off. This was the first time he had ever encountered a situation like this. He didn't understand what was going on, and when he attempted to open the door, he realized that the gate's mechanisms were no longer operational. He wasn't sure what was happening, and that was the reason why he hadn't sounded the alarm as soon as possible. He had stared at the gate doubtfully and dumbfoundedly as he attempted to open it. At this moment, the Life Guardian blade had absorbed enough life force from the large gate until it couldn't decay any further. The Soul Sage immediately sensed that something was wrong, and armed himself. The second-level Soul Tool defense mechanisms were a lot more rigorous than the first level, but the alarm was inside the third level's main gate, and only that alarm could reach the outside world. The people who were standing guard here before this were alerted to what was happening at the royal palace through this alarm mechanism. The Soul Sage was just getting ready to run into the third gate when the gate in front of him suddenly crumbled, and he almost subconsciously fired his aging ray. It was a pity that he was faced with Wang Qiu's golden dragon spear. This middle-aged Soul Sage had a lot of experience, and he didn't underestimate his adversaries even though he was facing 3 young girls. He activated all his soul tools at once, and immediately began to retreat as fast as he could. He had only one goal. There were many booby traps that were set up all around the second level, and he only had to lure his adversaries inside and trigger those traps. The traps would definitely hurt his attackers even if they were titled Douluo. Furthermore, he didn't know how many intruders there were, so his best choice was to sound the alarm as soon as possible. He made his decision because of these considerations, and bolted backwards as fast as he could. Wang Donga was fast, but this Soul Sage had class 7 soul tools. He was caught off guard, and he didn't have any particularly powerful soul tools that had to be charged up, but Wang Donga's physical body wasn't strong enough to withstand his attacks. Wang Donga unleashed streak after streak of her Light of the Butterfly Goddess to defend herself against her opponent's attacks as she lashed out with her guillotine wings. This class 7 soul engineer could possibly have escaped if Huo Yue hadn't been there. However, how could Huo Yue not plan their combat strategically now that he had locked onto his opponent's position? Black light stretched across the air without warning, and an enormous cauldron accurately appeared in the path that the class 7 soul engineer had to pass in his retreat. Xiao's 3 live soul crush cauldron's barricade was very effective. The secret warehouse's second level was similar to the first, and there were many automatic triggers laid out all over the ground. Soul tools would be triggered and concentrate their attacks on whoever stepped on these automatic triggers. Huo Yue had used his spiritual power to stalk Li Chong into this place, and this was the reason why he was relatively familiar with the second level. Under such circumstances, the huge cauldron was placed precisely at a spot that the Soul Sage could retreat safely to. There was space around the cauldron, but those were spaces where the booby traps were located. The Soul Sage would bring death upon himself if he accidentally stepped on one of those triggers. The class 7 soul engineer was quite sensitive, and he felt so despondent that he wanted to vomit blood when the large cauldron appeared in front of him. He immediately leapt up and attempted to jump over the cauldron, but how could Xiao give him this chance? Her 3 live soul crush cauldrons were stacked like a pyramid as they blocked his path and cut off every spot he could retreat to. The cauldron's tops were almost touching the ceiling. The class 7 soul engineer was getting a little worried and desperate. Light erupted from the soul tools on his body, and a dark red metal sphere appeared in his hands. Fuck, that's a class 7 explosive bomb. Is he not afraid of destroying everything here? Huo Yue cursed silently. He passed a message to Wang Qiu and Wang Donga through his spiritual detection. What are you two waiting for? Do you really want everyone to die here? Wang Qiu's eyes were a little hesitant, but her hesitance disappeared as she tapped her foot on the ground and followed behind Wang Donga as fast as could. She tossed the Life Guardian blade in her hands, and the carving knife flew out of her hands like a green beam of light. The Soul Sage in front of them had 7 soul rings. However, the Sun Moon Empire's 7 ring soul sages couldn't be gauged with the same criteria as typical 7 ring soul masters could, as long as they were soul engineers. The reason was because their standards weren't on the same scale. Simply put, this class 7 soul engineer wouldn't have much of a chance against Wang Qiu if he were up against her 1 versus 1 in a restricted area of battle. He possessed the advantages that soul engineers typically had, but he also had all their weaknesses. And their main weakness was their reaction time. The green light flashed by far too quickly. Wang Qiu's strength was unrivaled, and the class 7 soul engineer felt the light change in front of him as the metal sphere that he had just retrieved only got 3 feet into the air before it was struck by that green light. A carving knife? The class 7 soul engineer could finally tell. Soul engineers were exceptionally sensitive towards carving knives, and so he was momentarily stunned at the sight. The green carving knife released green light in all directions, and he watched as, in the next moment, the class 7 explosive bomb that he had tossed out transformed into a sphere of green light before it vanished into thin air. How is that possible? The soul engineer was petrified, and his first reaction was to protect himself. Golden light flashed across his body as an invincible barrier that could last for 15 seconds shimmered into being. His first thought at a time like this was how he could survive. Furthermore, he believed that 15 seconds was enough for him to be able to trigger the soul tool mechanisms around him, and he was confident that these traps were enough to stop these people. However, he was momentarily dazed once more at such a crucial time. He was stunned, as what was transpiring before him was simply too peculiar and insidious. There was one young girl with flowing pinkish blue long hair who was catching up to another young girl with outstretched wings. Both of them looked exactly the same, and they were both mouthwateringly beautiful. Stranger things continued to unfold as the young girl who was coming up from behind flung the spear in her hands forward before hovering in front of the other young girl. That young girl then tightly embraced the other young girl with butterfly wings in front of her. Dazzling golden light instantly blinded the soul engineer, and a tremendous shockwave came at him from behind. His invincible barrier could protect his body, but there was nothing it could do against such an immense impact from shockwaves like that. He could only rely on his own strength to defend himself. His invincible barrier relaxed a little, and caused him to stumble forward unwittingly. It was in this moment that the 2 figures who had merged together transformed in front of him. The bluish gold butterfly wings became a brilliant gold, while flowing lines appeared on the enchanting butterfly wings as her upper wings cracked open. 2 became 4, while the lower wings shifted down to allow space for the new pair. Even stranger, the butterfly wings were a lot wider and larger than before. They were clearly miniature dragon wings. Furthermore, those wings were covered with diamond-shaped golden dragon scales. 6 dragon wings. There were actually 6 golden dragon wings. Her enchanting features didn't change, and her long, flowing pinkish blue hair was no different from before, but there was now another crystal-like layer on her body. Every single strand of her hair was translucent, as if they were formed from crystal lattices, and pinkish blue hues circulated on top of every strand as if they were neon lights. Her long hair draped behind her back, and her golden dragon wings stretched out while her body became a lot taller than before. Golden armor covered her entire body, and the soul engineer could see that the armor was pieced together with fine, compact scales. She didn't have a helmet, but she wore a strange headband. There was a golden dragon's head imprinted in the center, with 2 butterfly wings on each side of it. This incredibly beautiful being raised her right hand, which now had dragon scales as a handguard, and reached out for the golden dragon spear in front of her. Crisp and bright dragon roars resonated through the entire level in the next moment, and golden light flickered as innumerable golden beams rained down on the invincible barrier in front of her. The dazzling and blinding golden light caused the class 7 soul engineer's entire body to become slackened like a daisical, but it was in this moment that the golden dragon spear stabbed his golden invincible barrier again and again. Shrill cracking sounds could be heard, and the soul engineer looked on incredulously as golden light detonated before his eyes. He had had absolute faith in his class 7 invincible barrier, but it lasted for less than 2 seconds. He didn't even have enough time to recover from his daze and how befuddled he was before his invincible barrier was dispelled. His class 7 automatic protective soul barrier was also instantly penetrated. A 6-winged golden dragon. What? What is this? This was the last thought that went through the Class 7 soul engineer's head. He couldn't think of anything else afterwards because the entire world had turned dark before his eyes. Circle after circle of golden light fed back through the golden dragon spear, and the enchantingly beautiful being stood proudly in the second level as faint golden light emanated from her body. She pointed the spear in her hands diagonally down, and there seemed to be a disdainful look in her eyes. Xiao's eyes were wide and stupefied. Even Huo Yuao in his spiritual form was dumbfounded by what he had just witnessed. He was the one who had planned this fusion, but this was still the first time he had seen it in action. Yes, this was a fusion between Wang Qi and Wang Donga, and this was their martial soul fusion skill. Huo Yuao thought of a fantastic name for them at this moment. The golden butterfly dragon transformation. There was only one word missing from this name compared to their three-way martial soul fusion skill, and its strength was definitely inferior in comparison. However, this golden butterfly dragon transformation was the strongest skill that they could unleash at the moment. Huo Yuao had calculated the power they had unleashed when they were in their purple golden butterfly dragon transformation after the match ended. Afterwards, he was sure that the strength that they possessed in that state was near the pinnacle of what an 8-ringed soul Douluo could reach. Even though such a circumstance was difficult to replicate, this was the best they could do for now. The golden dragon spear was almost like a divine weapon, and as long as they faced off enough enemies, and if these enemies subsequently perished at their hands, the two girls could maintain their martial soul fusion skill for a far longer time in combat than most others. How did Huo Yuao know that Donga and Kiyue could unleash a fusion skill like this? The reason was simple. He could undergo his own martial soul fusion with Wang Donga and Wang Kiyue individually with 100% compatibility, while the three of them could unleash a three-way fusion skill. It would be very strange if Wang Donga and Wang Kiyue couldn't fuse. Huo Yuao began to truly wonder in that moment whether Wang Donga and Wang Kiyue were actually biological sisters. They looked so similar to one another, and their martial souls could fuse. There was no other possibility that he could think of besides the fact that they were biological sisters. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.